There exists a decisive point in spiritual life where the soul is pushed to its limit, tested in pain so deep they seem unbearable. Paramahansa Yogananda warned, "The soul that desires liberation does not walk easy roads, but crosses dark valleys where everything seems lost." It is in this hidden territory that the greatest of tests reveals itself, the most painful one, that which separates the weak from those ready to awaken. Perhaps you have already passed through endless nights of anguish, losses that crushed your heart, situations where life seemed to tear from you everything you considered essential. In those hours, many believe they are being punished, but Yogananda said, "It is not punishment, it is purification. It is the final proof before liberation, the fire that burns impurities so that only the gold of consciousness remains." But how do you know if you have already won this secret battle? How do you recognize the signs that you were not broken, but transformed? The truth is that, after the most painful test, unmistakable marks emerge, signs that cannot be fabricated, because they only appear in those who crossed the storm and remained standing. What few perceive is that the most intense pain did not come to destroy you, but to reveal your hidden strength. Suffering was merely the veil, and behind it was hidden your true essence. Yogananda affirmed that when the soul resists and conquers, the universe marks it with sacred signs, confirming that the worst has passed and a new life has begun. Today you will discover what these 7 revealing signs are. Prepare yourself, because by recognizing them, you may realize that your greatest pain was, in fact, the silent announcement of your spiritual victory. Perhaps you have already passed the most severe exam of your existence and didn't realize it. There exists a silent test that the human soul faces, an invisible trial that leaves no external scars nor wins medals, but completely reconfigures the substance of who you are inside. This is not a test you study to pass, nor an experience you can avoid through careful planning. It is a psychological second birth that happens in life's most silent intervals, when you least expect it and most need it. This inner examination transforms poison into medicine, chaos into clarity, abandonment into sacred self-sufficiency. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare, nor conclude with ceremonies. It simply reorganizes your nervous system, redefines your identity, and recalibrates your presence in the world in ways so subtle that you can live years without recognizing the magnitude of the transformation that occurred. Today, you will discover the 7 unmistakable signs that you have undergone this spiritual metamorphosis, and how to recognize in yourself the silent dignity of those who emerged whole from their own ashes. The first sign that you have passed the soul's most painful test is a radical transformation in your relationship with solitude. It ceases to be punishment to be avoided and reveals itself as sanctuary to be cultivated. People who have undergone this alchemical process discover that being alone is no longer synonymous with abandonment or lack, but an inexhaustible source of insights, creativity, and inner renewal. This transmutation of solitude is like discovering that what you always feared as prison was actually a personal temple, where your soul can finally breathe without masks, perform without audience, and create without external approval. The abandonment complex that once governed your relational choices dissolves naturally, replaced by a quality of presence that attracts authentic connections without begging for them. There was a woman who spent years fleeing silence through toxic relationships and constant distractions, until a series of losses forced her to encounter herself. In the first months of forced solitude, she experienced pure terror. But gradually she discovered that the emptiness she so feared was filled with richer company than any superficial relationship, deep friendship with herself. The practice that consolidates this transformation consists of dedicating regular periods to being genuinely alone, without devices, without entertainment, without agenda, just you in the company of your own consciousness. During these moments, observe how you feel without needing to explain yourself. impress someone, or meet external expectations. This is the freedom your soul always sought, permission to exist without justification. The second sign reveals itself in radical honesty with yourself that transcends self-deception and false modesty. You recognize your impulses for manipulation, thirst for power, and shadow territories without defining yourself by them nor condemning yourself for having them. This conscious integration of the shadow transforms destructive energy into evolutionary fuel through ethical channeling and conscious direction. Anger, once a source of uncontrolled explosions or toxic repression, transmutes into sacred fire that burns what no longer serves, limiting patterns, self-destructive agreements, relationships based on convenience instead of truth. You learn to sustain internal contradictions without fragmenting, developing paradoxical capacity that allows you to be simultaneously gentle and firm, compassionate and ruthless with what sabotages your integrity. Alchemical tradition teaches about Nigredo, the black stage of transformation, where all base material must be confronted before transmutation into spiritual gold. Those who pass the soul's test experience this process viscerally, discovering that their most rejected aspects, when consciously integrated, become sources of authentic power. The practice of this integration requires you to stop dividing yourself into good part and bad part, and begin relating to yourself as complex totality containing the complete spectrum of human potentials. When destructive impulse arises, instead of repressing it or acting automatically, ask yourself, what vital energy is being distorted here? How can I channel this force for constructive purposes? The third sign manifests as developed immunity to others. Projections. You can perceive when others deposit unprocessed contents of their own psyches onto you without absorbing these projections or reacting defensively. This capacity for clean reading allows you to maintain genuine compassion for people in growth process without being contaminated by their unresolved dramas. Others' crises cease to hijack your emotional system. You develop lucid boundaries that allow authentic presence without self-annihilation, genuine support without compulsive need to save anyone. This is mature compassion. It offers mirror of possibility, instead of reinforcing destructive patterns through codependent rescue. Consider the difference between someone who drowns trying to save a panicking person in water and a trained lifeguard who maintains adequate distance to assist effectively without becoming a second victim. People who have integrated this sign develop the emotional equivalent of this competence. They can be fully present with others, suffering without losing themselves in it. The practice that strengthens this immunity consists of observing your reactions during conflicts or family dramas. Can you remain centered in your own truth even when others try to manipulate through guilt, anger, or victimization? Can you offer clear perspective without needing them to accept your vision? This emotional independence is not coldness. It is mature love that refuses to participate in destructive games. The fourth sign emerges as dramatic activation of intuition. You develop access to forms of knowledge that transcend mental analysis and constantly consult a silent, inner counsel that offers guidance through sensations, symbols, and sudden insights. Important decisions cease to be based exclusively on pros and cons lists and begin flowing from felt coherence that integrates body, symbol, and silence. This intuitive opening frequently comes accompanied by significant increase in synchronicities, events organized with intelligence that transcends conscious planning, as if the universe conspired to support directions aligned with deeper purpose. You learn to read the spaces between words and energetic layers behind superficial conversations. A successful executive reported that after crossing a period of profound personal transformation, his business decisions began flowing from instant knowledge that surpassed any market research. Projects he chose by intuition prospered beyond expectations, while those based purely on logic encountered unexpected obstacles. The practice of intuition cultivation consists of creating regular spaces of silence, where you can hear subtle guidance that was always available but was obscured by constant mental noise. Before important decisions, dedicate time to sit in quietude and simply ask, "What does my deepest wisdom have to say about this?" Learn to distinguish between anxiety's voice and intuition's voice. The first creates urgency, the second offers serene clarity. The fifth sign reveals itself as naturalness, with cycles of dissolution and renewal. You completely lose dread of apparent endings because you discovered experientially that every psychological death is prelude to expansion. This tolerance for uncertainty creates fertile space where life can reorder its own means without anxious interference from your part. Your energy becomes more economical and strategic. You stop wasting vital force in resistance to inevitable changes and learn to surf transformations instead of being dragged by them. Creativity flows as natural expression of life's movement through you, not as attempt to prove worth or conquer recognition. Universal mythology recognizes this pattern through archetypes like Phoenix, which is reborn from its own ashes, or Isis, who reconstitutes Osiris through transforming love. People who have embodied this sign live these mythological truths as daily reality. Each ending reveals itself as gateway to a more elevated dimension of experience. The practice that develops this trust in natural cycles consists of consciously observing small deaths and rebirths that happen constantly. The end of each breath allows new inspiration. Each day's end opens space for new dawn. Each project's conclusion liberates energy for next creation. Allow these observations to calibrate your trust in the inherent wisdom of transformation processes. The sixth sign manifests as dramatic fall of the inferiority complex. External opinion transforms into useful information instead of verdict on your worth as person. You develop non-negotiable authenticity that prefers rejection for being genuine to approval conquered through performance calculated to please others, us expectations. This transformation liberates monumental energy that was previously consumed in constant management of image and reputation. Your body posture changes. You move in the world with dignity of one who belongs to themselves, radiating silent authority that doesn't need to impose itself because it simply is. There was an artist who spent decades creating works designed for critical acceptance until a series of public failures forced him to confront his real motivation. When he finally began creating exclusively from interior authenticity, his art became revolutionary, not because it sought revolution, but because it expressed truth without filters. The practice that strengthens this internal authority consists of making small but significant decisions based exclusively on your inner truth, regardless of external approval. Begin with apparently trivial choices, clothes you really like, foods your body asks for, activities that nourish your soul, and observe how this fidelity to yourself gradually expands to more important areas of life. The seventh and most elevated sign reveals itself as energetic sovereignty. You become radically selective about where you invest your presence, not from arrogance or elitism, but from sacred recognition that your energy is finite resource that must be consciously protected and directed. This is not defensive isolation, but intelligent permeability that opens and closes with wisdom. You develop authority without aggression to protect your essence, like Temple Guardian, who allows entry only to those who come with pure intentions. Inevitable pain becomes respected teacher, from whom you extract wisdom, instead of victim that defines you or enemy, to be avoided at any cost. This energetic sovereignty attracts relationships and opportunities of superior quality because you stop negotiating your integrity in exchange for acceptance. People and circumstances that resonate with your elevated frequency are magnetically attracted, while those that would drain your vitality naturally distance themselves. The practice of this sovereignty consists of making regular inventory of how different people, our environments, and activities affect your energetic field. Consciously invest more time in what expands you and less in what contracts you. This is not cruel selectivity, but conscious administration of the most precious resource you possess, your own vital force. The journey through these 7 signs reveals a transforming truth. The soul's most painful test doesn't leave it unharmed, it leaves it whole. Each sign represents integration of fundamental aspects of human experience that, when consciously unified, create a presence that combines vulnerability with strength, sensitivity with discernment, openness with wise protection. This is not conquest you add to your identity, but recognition of who you always were, behind layers of conditioning, trauma, and external search for validation. The silent dignity that emerges from this process doesn't need to be announced. It radiates naturally through your way of being in the world, creating fields of possibility that inspire others to remember their own essential completeness. If these signs echo deeply in your soul, if you recognized in their descriptions the silent journey you have traveled in the depths of your own being, then allow this confirmation to become fuel to radiate even more fully the light you conquered through conscious encounter with your own shadows. Tap the like so more souls recognize the sacred fruits of their own transformation processes. Subscribe to this channel to continue exploring the most elevated territories of human experience. Share this revelation with all those you feel walking similar paths of self-discovery. And in the comments, if you feel authentic resonance with this description, declare simply, "I walk whole," not as casual comment, but as solemn vow of integral presence in the world. May the wisdom conquered through your deepest trials become guiding light for souls still navigating interior storms. May your reconquered integrity inspire others to persist in their own processes of spiritual alchemy. May you recognize in the serenity that now inhabits your heart, not personal conquest, but revelation of the peace that was always your essential nature. And may your presence in the world become living testimony that it is possible to emerge from ashes not merely surviving, but transfigured by the very experience of dissolution and rebirth. May the peace conquered through the supreme test radiate through each breath, each gesture, each moment of your renewed existence.